folks. Welcome to Follow the Leader, a podcast focused on telling character-driven stories through the use of GM-less tabletop games where we can all take the lead. You can find us on Tumblr and Blue Sky at FTLcast and at FTLcast.com, which admittedly we need to update, but, life. We also have a Patreon at patreon.com/FTLcast, which we update more often than we update FTLcast.com, let's be real. Today we're playing Hounds by Tyler Crumrine. For those of you who are new to this game, here are the basics. Hounds is a dice-stacking role-playing game about the bond between a mech pilot and their robot companion. Hound stands for Human-Operated Utility Neuralink Device, and authorities want to erase your mech's memories, deleting your friendship. Escape is unlikely, but you're determined to resist. I'm August, and you can find me on Tumblr at Strange Harpy, on Blue Sky at Harpydora, and my pronouns are they, them. Playing with me today we have Coda.
Hi, I'm Coda. I also go by Jade. You can find me most places on the internet at Jade Oxford Rose, and I use they them pronouns.
Our lines, things we absolutely do not want to see, are homophobia and transphobia, racism, sexism, anti-Semitism, violence against children and animals, sexual assault, domestic violence or intimate partner violence, unwanted pregnancy, and plagues and pandemics. Our veils, things we're fine with addressing but will just fade to black on, are steamy situations and terminal illness. Content warnings for this gaming may include horror and body horror due to eldritch exposure. Now that we've got all that, let's get started. Insert sci-fi theme here.
Insert sci-fi theme.
Alright, so, Hounds is typically a dice stacking game, but it does have alternate rules for those of us playing online or for folks who lack the ability to stack dice, that kind of thing. So we are not going to be stacking dice because it would be really difficult to find a place in the middle of the ocean for us to meet.
It definitely doesn't lend itself to dice stacking.
No. But the setting of Hounds, the game takes place in a futuristic setting, but there's plenty of room for variation and nuance. Our game could exist in a setting indistinguishable from our present moment with the exception of Hound technology existing, or our game may take place in a far future where humankind lives among the stars. So we should probably decide. I know we've got some vague thoughts towards sci-fi, and I think the stuff that we discussed before we sat down to record kind of implies a more future sort of setting, but
I do have a pitch.
Yes.
So, in one of our frequently visited settings, which, as of FTL, the world itself doesn't have a name, we always just refer to it as City of Goldsverse. However, pre the apocalypse, we know that there was a war between magic and technology. Also religion, if you listen to that one Spindle Wheel episode that we did for Patreon. But a little tease of something that's coming up, not on FTL, but as a sister or a sibling production. What if mechs in also a magical fantasy setting?
I am absolutely here for this.
Excellent, excellent. Because that means we can get buck wild. more
Yeah.
so. Because
Yeah.
one thing that you expressed an interest in was eldritchy nonsense. You didn't say nonsense, but I'm
I
paraphrasing.
mean, yeah.
Fuck yeah. So this is, I was say, pre the end of the world, as it were, because pretty much nearly every time we've been in the verse, with a couple of minor exceptions, it's been in the aftermath of the war.
Mm-hmm.
But this, like, plopping ourselves right down into it. My
Yeah.
cat. Apollo. Yeah, I think August and I are playing on cat. You can just see a little face poking up in the corner. But in we've seen it in settings before. Like, I know it's quite popular anime. Like, there was a high level of technology, and then there's this big world-ending catastrophe, and then everything sort of gets reset.
It wouldn't be an FTL recording if a cat didn't try to get involved.
I'm home on my own at the moment, so he is demanding attention. Anywho, so really, we could. I like the idea, like, we can get creative with tech. Like, Magitech's always been something I enjoy, but think like Full Metal Alchemist almost, in terms of
Mm-hmm.
like that kind of vibe.
I like that idea a lot.
Hell yes. So the enemy is magical inclined. We are the side of technology, as it all were, but it tracks that in order to imagine the way in order to fight monsters, we made monsters. The people developing this program would use maybe a power they didn't fully understand because they thought they could harness it.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
All right.
The game does have a note. Whatever you're setting, these things must be true. Neither your pilot nor your hound wants to be separated from the other. An authority figure has decided the hound must be wiped, removed, or destroyed, and the pair is determined to resist, and the authorities are determined to pursue.
Oh yeah.
So, which do we think? Which do we think the authority wants to do? Wipe, remove, or destroy our hound?
Given what we were talking about pre-mic, I feel like the corruption has gone too far.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a matter. This hound would be destroyed. It's
Okay.
like it's got too much magical influence. It's become too tainted by the other side.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, the next step is hound creation. Characters and hounds don't have stats or ability scores, so you have the freedom to create whatever kind of hound you'd like. All players share control of a single mech over the course of the game, though, so thinking about quote unquote your character, remember that they're everybody's. As such, everyone should be given equal opportunity to contribute during brainstorming. We've already done a little brainstorming beforehand. As Coda kind of gestured to, we have the idea of a mech that is kind of held together with eldritchy sinew, almost.
For our listeners, August hasn't seen Scavenger's Reign. Um, I'm bugging them to do so. But in a similar way to mild spoilers, a robot character, Levi, is part of being sort of accepted by the planet that then starts having this organic material inside. And it doesn't do anything to hurt Levi. Rather, they grow and evolve as a result of this sort of symbiosis it has with the planet. So, watch Scavengers Run. Kicks
I
ass.
will. I will.
That's to our listeners as well, not just to August.
I know.
I also had the notion, this is sort of moving into the hound's form. Function, I feel like it's military, if not full on combat. Whether we want it to be more of a like a fighting type or a scout type or
I like the idea of either of those.
Cool.
Scout type could be fun, doing reconnaissance, being out in the middle of nowhere with, just like spotter gear, passing the time with no one
Yeah.
but each other.
Sort of like Horizon Walker kind of energy.
Mm-hmm.
For the form, two things came to my mind. One, I forget the name of this artist, but does these really moody, evocative pieces of like skeletons in urban settings, like giant skeletons.
Love it.
And also there's that one photo somebody took of, I think it's Kudzu or Big Pond, that's overtaken like a street light. And so you've got
Mm-hmm.
like this almost, I just like something that looks humanoid up to a point. Maybe it's because it's shifted or changed, but I was also thinking about the Evas for, I don't know why. I'm not an Evangelion person, but something that was maybe built with this on this sort of frame to look vaguely humanoid, and it's sort of shifted and but like the size of sort of like a house, like maybe 2-3 stories, so not full like Jaeger sized,
Mm-hmm.
but bigger than Titanfall 2. Is that like a more normal? I say more normal. I forget.
Yeah,
I've never played it, but I always don't think of them as being massive, massive.
yeah, they're not like 3 stories tall or anything like that.
Yeah.
I don't think. Yeah. Yeah, so a little bigger than a Titan, smaller than an Eva.
hmm But yeah, and I think like I like the idea that some of its shapes look very evocative of a human or humanoid sort of skeleton. There is like 2 arms, 2 legs, something resembling a head,
Mm-hmm.
or not. I assume the pilot will sit in like the mostly in the chest cavity.
Yeah.
Like,
I am imagining like a chest cavity that's full of goo that the pilot then has to like wade into to get to the controls, and then
so it's not
like
full Eva flooding the cockpit with goo, but definitely you have to be
no.
in the goo.
Yeah. It's not LCL fluid, it's you've got to but you do have to be in the goo.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. I'm trying. I can't think of what it is, but there is something about like having to be in the liquid to control something. Either way, it's sick. Um, a thought I had, and this could be on the outside or the inside of the hound, is just all of these sigils and mark. Maybe it's a language, maybe it's maybe it's wards to stop the magic side of the conflict fucking
Ooh.
with it, or it's meant to. But I love the idea of something being simultaneously very mechanical, like very like good clunk clunk switches and levers and
Mm-hmm.
goo, but also having that touch of almost religion feeling to it, like with this sigil work and things like that. It's feeling very Locked Tomb. Like, what if
Mm-hmm.
your spaceship was a cathedral? Kind of a vibe, but on a much smaller scale. Like,
Yeah.
also, I know I mentioned FMA earlier, but even just like how in Al's armor, um, there is that one symbol that's there. It's just something about being inside a suit of armor or a mech, and there just being symbols all around you that is just very evocative to me.
Yeah. It's good shit.
Hell yeah. So we've got form, we've got function.
Yep.
We need to decide on a technical name for this hound, make, model, and what the pilot calls it, or if it has pronouns at this point.
I don't think the pilot is the kind of person to base a nickname off of the technical name.
Mm-hmm.
So, whatever the technical name is, the nickname will be something entirely different from that, I think.
Sure. I want to come up with a clever initialism like Hound, but I am drawing a fucking blank. Because we've not really spent a lot of time in the setting establishing, like, we spent more time with the magical side of the war, or the one is with the religious faction. So we don't know really, because I was wondering about things like knights and squires and things like that, briefly, or what sort of points of reference they might use. Because, like, thinking about like Siri, like, nope, brain gone. Never mind.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to cook something up. I'm trying to reverse
Mm-hmm.
engineer an initialism.
Fuck yeah.
So because you mentioned religion and the
Mm-hmm.
locked tomb, that immediately sent me into Catholicism. So I'm trying to come up with an initialism for confess.
Uh-huh.
Computerized something eldritch scouting system.
Okay. Well, get down the ones you've got, and then we'll see about filling in the rest.
Yeah, I just need O and F. I'll
What was the
drop it in
C?
the computerized.
Oh, that can be the C and the O.
Oh, sounds good.
Just have to have a lowercase o.
Drop this in the doc.
Neural for the N.
Neural. Uh, hmm.
I mean, N doesn't have to be neural either. This is all we're going to do
No,
now.
neural is good. Neural is good.
Or it could be computer operated for CO.
Oh, that's a
Or
good one.
cognitive.
Cognitive's good. The only F word I can come up with right now is fellatio, and that is not what we're looking for here.
Despite Brian's help in our server
Oh my
before we
god.
started.
Yeah.
Alternatively, we can use the S and the A, because, like, if you want to go with the category, we could go with like pious, or significantly less letters, or, because I'm trying to think of what this is designed for. Is effectively a defensive measure, isn't it? Because this particular one isn't a weapon.
Yeah.
Necessarily. But if we did want to go with that, just setting the Catholicism aside, it could be a weapon with an initialism, like axe or pike or sword, or I can't think of anything else, but you know what I mean.
You know, we don't have to come up with what it is. We can just have it be. I like pike.
Okay.
So we have a pike unit, and then I think the unit should have a number. Are we the first of this kind of group, or have we been? Are we part of a manufacturing line?
I feel like there was maybe a small run, like maybe they built like a dozen, but maybe it's got a sub number or letter to reflect that it's a scout unit, or a scout class, maybe.
Let's go with 6.
Mm-hmm.
Just because 6 is a good number.
Sure. Add it pike man. No, pike is good. Just pike. Just pike. Okay.
I think the nickname that the pilot gives the unit is Lucy, Luci,
Mhm.
because I don't know if the pilot will ever actually expresses this, but it's like, the light of my life, guiding light, that kind of thing.
I like it.
And I think for the level of self-awareness, it should be high.
Works for me. How long, given the book says about higher levels of self-awareness require longer partnerships with a pilot,
Hmm.
I suppose let's talk about the pilot and then we can figure how long they've been working together.
Yep. Um, your pilot's soon-to-be ex career is dictated by your hound's function. They've also been working in this field long enough that an AI imprinting has occurred between the pilot and their hound companion. Choose a name, pronouns, and look for your pilot. As with hound design, pilot culture tends to be very canine centric. Well, we're not going that way, but the book says that's fine. So, uh, I have come up with a name for the pilot:
Mm-hmm.
Indigo Bliss. Indy if you're brave, or their hound.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, uses they, she pronouns. The look that I've come up with is tall and broad, but beyond that, I'm still trying to figure stuff out. I think, not to continually invoke Ava, I think that the piloting involves like a skin tight plug suit kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
Something that won't get too mired in the goo, but still allows for like goo contact.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think hair plays well with the goo, so maybe she has a shaved head.
We love to see it.
Anything you'd be interested in seeing from Indigo?
Mm. Do they shave anything into the side of where they've got a shaved head, like, or tattoos, or pierce something that gives a personality stamp? Or how
Mm,
do they, given the they've imprinted on Lucy and Lucy's imprinted on them, what kind of person are we talking? Is this somebody that, um, yeah, what's their vibe? Like, do they have any like tchotchkes or personal things hanging around inside the cockpit?
mm. That's a good question. I think that they're the kind of person that would forego tchotchkes because they're a distraction from the mission.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about tattoos or like designs shaved in the fuzz,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess that speaks to them being very minimalist.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I can dig that.
a minimalist, kind of no nonsense person
Mm-hmm.
who gets very intense.
What do you think coloring wise? Dark hair, dark skin, or are they more of a
Mm.
light-eyed sort of person?
I think dark hair and dark skin could be good.
Yeah.
Not that the hair really matters at this point, but
Mm-hmm.
dark skin, probably medium to dark brown, and really
Mm-hmm.
dark eyes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Check. Check. How old are they?
Well, we've got to have been doing this for a while, so
Mm-hmm.
maybe she started like fresh out of school, you
Mm-hmm.
know, 18, 19, and we've been at it for several years now, so maybe 30.
Cool. Dig it. So yeah, the next thing is brainstorming the pilot's past. We don't need to go into loads of detail, but how did they become a pilot? How long has she been piloting this Pike unit?
I think Lucy is the only unit that Indigo's been assigned to.
Mm-hmm. Dig it.
Are they like an exemplary pair,
Hmm.
or is it a case of like, you know, they do all right enough, but not enough to justify the level of self-awareness that Lucy's acquired, and the level of, that's something that we didn't take into account with Indigo's look. How is Indigo changed by, like, the Magitech?
I'll expand on that. I like the idea that clearly they were good enough at what they were doing to be given a degree of oversight. Because the fact that it's taken this long
Mm-hmm.
for like the higher ups to be like, oh, this is bad. We need to destroy this Pike unit now. So I feel
Mm-hmm.
like they're probably either very good at their job. I tell you what, very competent, not so good as to attract lots of attention, but the sort of like head down, do your work, give them the results, don't give them reason to look at you twice,
Mm-hmm.
for good or ill.
Yeah. They're not like heroes or anything like that. But they're, you know,
Competent.
yeah, they're competent.
Like just above like the sort of thing where people are just like, they're good, but they're clear. You don't want to make it look like you're just skirting along. You
Mm-hmm.
gotta have a little fluctuation there. But how has the Magitech affected Indigo? Important question. What is the goo? What color is the goo? Sorry.
I'm imagining it black and moving, kind of similar. Did you ever see the Venom movie?
I saw the first one.
Yeah, that's fine. Just like the kind of the way that the symbiote moved,
Cool.
that sort of texture.
All right.
Do we think that, like, the extremities that spend the most time in the goo, like the veins are black in those extremities?
Definitely.
Cool. Are there any other side effects that are less visible? Maybe night vision?
That's cool as hell. Like the thing that cats and certain other animals have, like where you can
Yes.
that. I know we've given that to characters before, but I've stopped doing it when it stops being cool as fuck.
Yep.
Well, I also like the idea as well of that, and related to, you've seen the Constantine movie with Keanu Reeves, right?
Yeah.
Oh my god, August.
What?
Oh, you froze on me. I thought you were guiltily saying no.
No, I said yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
I enjoyed it greatly. It's not a good Constantine movie, but it's still a fun
Yeah.
movie.
My favorite thing is just like, this is not John Constantine of Hellblazer comics. He's still out there looking like Sting in the 80s from Liverpool. This is John Constantine, a different but very similar character. It's why the name's pronounced different. But to that point, the way that what John calls them half breeds, isn't it? Even if they're half demon or half, they have that slight light quality to their eyes. Like, not all the time, but if you know what to look for, you catch it. I like the idea that maybe Indigo's got some of that.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Heck yeah.
All right.
All right. Why did Indigo become a pilot?
I feel like it was one of those things where, so in the US, we have this thing called the ASVAB, which I don't remember what it stands for, but it's a test that a lot of high school students take that does, like, kind of general interest, competencies, that kind of thing, and then that gets used by military recruiters. And I think it's something like that, where, like, the military is looking to recruit fresh faces who don't know any better and don't know that war isn't actually that glamorous.
Yeah. I mean, not the concept. The concept is cursed as hell, and I hate that, and it's
Yeah.
gross.
Yeah.
Which we all know. But it works well for our purposes here. So,
Yep.
all right.
Okay.
Okay.
So, taking flight. Play
Wait, we
begins
got
with
to
the
do
scene brain.
positive and negative emotional qualities.
Oh, I completely missed that page.
Page 10.
Yeah.
I swear.
Yep.
Past to the top, which we've done. Now we're going to brainstorm a number of positive and negative emotional qualities the pilot possesses, at least one of each. But whatever emotional qualities the pilot has, the hound has developed them too. So, as part of like the imprinting.
I think we discussed like them being no nonsense and intense, and I guess those could qualify for positive qualities.
Yeah. I mean, intense could also be considered negative. I think it depends who you're talking to.
All right, let's put intense and negative.
All right.
I'd like to come up with at least one more of each.
Yeah, no. I'll dig that.
I can see Indigo being brusque,
Mm-hmm.
which leaves another positive quality. Well, they're a scout, so maybe some form of like insightful.
I like insightful.
Cool.
All right. Now we can take flight.
Yeah. Sorry about that. All right. So, play begins with the scene brainstormed by all players. As a group, decide what the last moment was before our duo agreed to break the law and which one suggested resisting, the hound or their pilot. Your scene could include a straw that broke the camel's back or simply a conversation after receiving paperwork. In either case, though, it should be a mutual decision. Also decide what the pair's initial resistance looks like. Similarly, this could be a high-octane breakout or a quiet fading into the shadows. Just make sure you have a clear intent in mind and that you know where the two wind up at the end of the scene. Once you've arrived at ideas you're all happy with, cast a player as the hound, another as their pilot, and any others as extras. Narrate and roleplay the actual conversation and actions inspired by your brainstorming. There's no need to act out every little detail, but you should at least give a snapshot of the moment your hound and pilot reached an accord. Alright, so do we want this to be a breakout, or do we want this to be like we've gotten the orders that Lucy's gonna be decommissioned, but we have like one last mission we're supposed to do before we come home for that to happen. And then we just, don't.
Mm-hmm. I like the idea that something has happened on the wider scheme of things of the war, and it's sort of come back to the mech core. And there's been talking, and maybe there are rumors going around that they're they're going to be like scaling back the core, or because I like the idea that it isn't just Lucy that's experienced this imprinting. I
Mm-hmm.
like the idea that the technology and the magic or the eldritch nonsense that that holds these creations together. I like that it's inevitable. Like you can't infuse technology with this kind of energy and then put a person in it and not expect the technology to become more like the person.
Mm-hmm.
It's like an oversight on the part of the people that developed it. And maybe want somebody else's, or alternatively, what if we're out on a scouting or something? We get orders to come back, or we're on our way back from something, and we get a warning from somebody else in the core, like, hey, somebody's already had their hound destroyed, and we
Mhm.
get the word like, don't come back. They're
I
gonna
like that idea.
they're gonna do this.
I think maybe you said that maybe there were about a dozen of these pike units that got created. I think it's interesting to me if, there's only like 4 or 5 of us left from the initial batch. Like, the other units have gotten destroyed naturally.
In
And
combat or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, not naturally, but as a matter of attrition.
Yeah.
Um
Take it.
and so, now we're at the bleeding edge, so to speak, where it's been decided, oh shit, you let this go on too long, now we have to pull it back.
Yeah, you can't undo this. You can't. There is no walking this back.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
So the comms crackles to life, and we get a message.
Mm-hmm. I like the idea. It's not necessarily like a radio thing. Maybe it's more
Mhm.
like a printout, like like a telegram esque
Mhm.
almost thing, and it comes over, preferably over the wire, or perhaps it's something to do with the Eldritch Sinew, and it's less an official way of communicating, but something the pilots have figured out you can do is
You
use.
can you can pluck the sinew to cause vibrations that can only be picked up by the same material,
Yeah.
but it still, like, has to be interpreted by the pike unit. So
Mm-hmm.
Lucy gets the communication first then. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's probably just it may not even explain what's going on. It may just be don't come back, and that's it. And then we get what amounts to the death scream of
Mm-hmm.
the unit that sent the notification.
Yeah.
And that's how we figure out, oh shit, they're destroying.
Mm-hmm. I like that a lot. What were we doing? Were we just like traveling? Were we just like striding our way through the countryside, as it were? Or were we like in the middle of something?
I think it's more fun if we're in the middle of something, like we're in the middle of some recon and we get
Mm-hmm.
this message, and we may be brusque and no nonsense, but
Mm-hmm.
that's not the kind of thing that you can just shake off. And so we're not only dealing with the emotional repercussions of what's just happened, but we're also
Mm-hmm.
dealing with the fact that, like, we're in enemy territory.
Yeah. I think we're in there. We're like, we're spying or whatever, or we're like hidden in something doing this. And it feels like, although it's like a non-Newtonian, it's not liquidy. In Jurassic Park where the water ripples.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think even Indigo can feel that and knows
Mm-hmm.
what it means, but can't read it, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
So you feel we haven't really talked about how Lucy and Indigo are connected. It occurs to me an hour
I
in
was I was just assuming that it happened through the goo.
through the goo.
Yeah.
Goo, bringing people closer together.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, just similar to the symbiote and Venom. Just,
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I know what I'm about.
I know, I'm just wondering, can the goo be removed? That's a different thing. Anywho,
Hmm.
um, so we feel this like pulse, and we know what that means. It means like incoming. And you don't feel words from Lucy at first. You just feel like this ripple of confusion, and it goes still. Lucy, it, not the goo. And I think Indigo knows, like, Lucy's trying to figure something out or trying to make sense of something. I don't know if Indigo reacts to that sort of stillness, like knowing there's a message that's come in. But the fact that
Yeah.
Lucy hasn't immediately said what it is.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a reaction. Like, Lucy would feel that curiosity, but it's a tentative curiosity. I think that even without being able to interpret the message, Indy can feel that there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And then she's just like, Lucy, report.
I think it is like when you're Indigo, it can be a voice. Like,
Mm-hmm.
even if you're not really sure how you're hearing it, but you can. Um, what would this other mech's name be? And maybe it's just a number.
Well, we could either do a number or the nickname that was given to it by its pilot is also a form of light in a different language.
Also good. I think I cannot think of it. Like, I know maybe Lux
Mm-hmm.
is the first one that pops to mind. So Lucy's like, it's Lux. It's saying don't come, and then I think it gets cut off as this
Mm-hmm.
massive ripple, like when you're in, like, almost like when you're in a wave pool, like
Mm-hmm.
there's almost like this surge in the goo. And I think even without understanding, like, it is this pain and anguish and anger and this overwhelming sense of it's not fair and
Mm-hmm.
fear all at once. And I think whatever position we were in, Lucy maybe drops, like, to one knee.
Mm-hmm.
And given that it's 3 stories tall, makes a big ass fucking noise.
Yeah.
Uh, like this clang of metal, and I think maybe you get slightly jostled by the movement as this noise, like metal on stone, rings out around us.
And I think Indigo, like, almost blacks out there for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Because, that is a giant's emotions being crushed down into Indigo's relatively tiny head.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so, like, it's just so overwhelming that she can't handle it at first. But
Mm-hmm.
then she comes back to herself. Lucy's dropped to one knee, and now Indigo's just, like, trying to scan around us
Mm-hmm.
because there's no way we didn't get heard.
Yeah, I think an alarm starts ringing, or a bell starts being rung, like an alarm. The alarm is being sounded
Mm-hmm.
at this, like, settlement or this outpost that we were watching.
Yeah.
People are rallying.
Yeah, 100%.
Maybe it is just as simple as Lucy pushes itself up to standing. I was trying to say almost robotically.
Mm.
I feel like there's maybe a mechanicalness to its movements that Indigo hasn't felt in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And it just starts running. Just these, like, massive strides, putting some distance between this settlement and us. And you get the feeling, just like, of just get away, get somewhere safe, keep you safe, keep us safe. And that just sort of cycling. as disappear into the dusk or
Mm.
whatever.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that Indigo like gives any sort of resistance to us trying to disappear as the sun's set.
All right. So we are in the weeds, as it were. The pursuit begins.
So under normal circumstances we would place a die on the table, but since we can't play in the mid-Atlantic, we're going to use the towerless play rules. We only need 3d6 or a digital random number generator, which we've got a dice bot that we're going to be using. And we will be rolling dice instead of
Stacking them.
stacking them.
Basically, with the rules as written, you make what they call a stress roll with a single dice, and you divide the result by 2, and then whatever you got is how many dice is added to the tower. And when the tower falls, we encounter the other upsetting mechanic of the game, which is the hound starts losing memories. The stress of the situation, whether physical, mental, or emotional, causes the hound to lose a memory. What we'll be doing is, when there is a stress roll, we will be rolling 3d6. And then whatever the number of stress that would have been added to the tower, instead we'll be crossing off a list of like 6. So if 2 dice have rolled, their values are 3 and 5, both the 3 and the 5 will be crossed off. The 1, 2, 4, and 6 remain. When all 6 numbers have been crossed off, that's the tower falling. And then, a memory is lost. And with the towerless method, you just keep playing until 6 memories are gone. Well, that's the idea. So we'll take turns leading scenes, and when we encounter an obstacle, that's when there will be a stress roll. Regardless of, but if it was a big group, it would just take turns, different tactics, and it's how you overcome it. Regardless of the plan, the roll happens after the plan is pitched, because even a good plan can be stressful when executed. Is the reasoning. Checking to see if there are any other mechanics we need to be aware of as we go forward.
I just want to say something that amuses me as part of the text. The rest of play takes place in turns, with the turn order proceeding clockwise from player to player, or, it'll bounce between us. The player who used a piece of heavy machinery other than an automobile most recently goes first. So, like, I've run a pitchfork before, but, or not a pitchfork, a forklift before. But that was when I was like 20, 21, so unless like we count operating elevators and stuff like that, in which case
I think you still win. I don't think I've ever operated heavy machinery outside of a car or a motorbike, and I've had like lessons in the past. So this is where it'd be useful to steal G, because his side job is working with his brother doing tree surgery, so he gets to play with chainsaws and wood chippers. So
yeah,
definitely the sort of stuff you can't operate one having a medication that can make you drowsy. So one thing with the memory loss, the hound must take damage in some way. When these instances occur, like in the scenes, the scene must feature a flashback to a memory between the hound and the pilot. And that's the memory that gets erased. So You roleplay the memories until the emotional connection between pilot and mech is clear. And then it's gone forever. Because we love to be sad about
Yep,
mechs.
we sure do.
Welcome to Follow the Leader. We are sad about mechs.
Yep.
Also, unrelated, go listen to On the Shoulders of Giants if you haven't already.
Yeah, they're good folks. They're our Kohai podcast.
Alrighty. So I think you're going first.
Yep.
After
So,
all that preamble.
I mean, I think that we've already come up with like a good obstacle is an alarm has been sounded and we're probably being chased.
Mm-hmm.
Which, obstacles can be anything from a security checkpoint to being actively chased, but should always pose a risk to your peers' continued evasion of the authorities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're definitely at risk here because, we could easily be disabled by the forces that we were performing reconnaissance on.
I had the thought while we were stepping away to get drinks that I feel like the reason why the technology side, and I feel like we maybe said as much, but it clarified that these eldritch essences, it's meant to protect the technology from magical interference, right? Like that's what it's got to be. The thought that it's like. Maybe the thought is like this eldritch stuff. Maybe it's not called that in world, but it's considered like anti-magic in the same way that we have matter and antimatter. And the thought is it's like um, opposing magnetic poles, and that it will repel. So it just occurred to me like maybe this stuff was found after a battle, and they were like, "Hey, we should put this in our robots, so magic can't fuck with them." And lo and behold, robots with feelings happened.
Yep.
Surprise, motherfuckers, robots with feelings will always happen.
All right. So once an obstacle has been presented, all other players pitch tactics for overcoming the obstacle and explain what their planned success would look like. Unlike your previous brainstorming, each player presents their own scene idea rather than collaborating on a single scene as a group. After pitching their idea to the active player, each player makes a stress roll to determine how much stress their plan would induce. And then the active player selects a pitch based on whatever criteria they like. Actually, I think there are specific duet play rules. Yeah, each player pitches and rolls stress for the tactic in every scene. The active player still has final say over which tactic is selected and can elect to choose their own or their partner's. Yeah, so we're being chased by... Who are we being chased by? I feel like that's important. Like, I know we've established that this is kind of like a three-pronged war here between science and magic and religion. So are these mages of some sort, or are these religious devotees?
I think it's mages, purely because I feel like the religion crew entered very late into the conflict. But this place they were at, maybe it's somewhere of religious significance, but we don't know what the mages were there doing. That's why we were watching. That's why we were sent as a target. It was sent to us as a target to check out.
Okay.
So I think it's mages. Maybe they've got a couple of I don't know how D&D-esque I want to make this. Could they literally be flying? Like could somebody be using a fly spell? Like we've been very vague on purpose about the capacities of magic and what it can be used to do. Or do they have like steeds of some kind?
I like the idea that they have steeds of a sort.
Some delightfully weird animal of some kind. Or a magical
Yes.
construct.
Yeah.
Alright.
Do we have any sort of like cloaking system or something like that?
I think it might be more like a practical sort of camouflage thing, in that
Mm-hmm.
pieces of the external armor can maybe be adjusted. Like that thing we were talking about, or I was talking about with the form and just like looking like you're part of what's already there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it depends where they are, how good they are at camouflage.
Okay.
So I think they have means of hiding themselves, but I don't think they have necessarily full-on cloaking technology.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the tactic I've got is we know the area decently well, and we're going to take a route. We're going to veer off towards where we know there's like a small chasm, or the topography is going to make it so anything that doesn't have legs, like X feet long or whatever, or meters long, is not going to be able to traverse easily. So maybe, or it could just be like real deep water,
Mm-hmm.
like something that a pike unit can wade through or push through.
Mm-hmm.
Either that or jump over a big old gap.
Okay. Yeah, so basically using the terrain to our advantage.
Mm-hmm. That's my pitch.
My pitch is basically beating feet as quickly as possible, and then trying to use our camouflage, because we're camouflaged for the area.
Mm-hmm.
Like use that to hide and let them pass, and then double back.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So now we each roll a stress die, correct?
Yes.
I rolled a 4, which means it would take 2 stress to do my objective.
3. So that would be 1.5. 1 if we're rounding down.
I think you round up.
Up. Okay. Okay,
Um,
so it's the same amount of stress either way.
I like your tactic better,
Okay.
so let's go with using the terrain to our advantage. So you would roll 2d6, 1d6 for each stress.
Okay.
Oh,
2 5s.
so we only mark off 5.
Alrighty.
Cool. So now we narrate the getaway.
Well, we said the sun was setting.
Yeah.
I think as we run, the initial feeling of panic subsides enough that it becomes less of the emotion of get away, we've got to get away, and becomes more decisive. Like, okay, we could take the swamp or cross over that big lake we passed, or we can head north and try and jump that chasm and then sever any bridges there. And it becomes then a conversation. It stops being Lucy just running on instinct, and it becomes Lucy and Indigo deciding where to go.
Yeah. We don't know the capabilities of their steeds. They could be able to navigate the swamp just as easily as we could. But I doubt they'll be able to leap a chasm that large.
And then so Lucy veers off northward to this. I feel like it's like on one side it's like very sheer drop, and the other has got like a steep incline on the other side. So, but it goes. If you were to, you could slide down and then climb up the other side. It would just take you a long ass time.
Yeah.
Whereas we are able to sort of clear it with a big old leap. It's not a graceful landing, but it's a landing.
And then there's probably a bridge nearby that, with a swipe of Lucy's hand, we can just take it out.
Hell yeah. And we have to keep... This will take ages, it occurs to me, to get to 6 memories lost, if only if it takes filling up the stress tracker to cause a memory loss. So this is just occurring to me. And to be fair, we've encountered this with dice using dice instead of towers before. So it's fine. We'll see how we be. Okay.
Yeah. So we have the option. We can either go as far as we can and then choose to do a pickup, or we can decide whether the ending is happy or sad.
Alrighty.
We'll play to find out what happens.
Yeah. And the next obstacle we encounter, I think we're resting somewhere. We've got enough distance away. We feel relatively hidden. And we're sort of maybe trying to figure out what our next step is. We've said we've explained each other that was Lux. We can't let that happen. Where do we go? And we're trying to figure out a plan. And I like the idea that an official communication comes in.
Mm-hmm.
I think the question is Scout Unit 6, we have your location. Why are you not at the site? Why are you not at the site of interest? What's happened? Basically, a status report is being demanded.
Yeah.
I feel like we've got to either get off the phone, as it were, or come up with an excuse, or make it so they can't track us anymore, or yeah. But we are known.
I was gonna say for my pitch, get rid of the tracker as much as that's gonna suck because it's a part of Lucy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I take that.
That's my pitch.
Mm-hmm. My pitch. I don't know if I should bother pitching it because I like what you suggested. But we got to roll and stuff. So my pitch would be doing a fake out and making them think maybe we destroyed or something.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't reply. We send something back and maybe they just stop looking.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've been oh no, the tactic is we've been taken by the enemy.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
But I like the visceralness of having to tear out a piece of Lucy's makeup to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I like that much more.
All right. Well, let's see if it has a suitable amount of stress associated with it. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So 1 stress to lie and 3 stress to tear a part of Lucy out of itself.
Mm-hmm. So you roll in 3d6. Or am I doing it?
Actually, I think the active player does it, so you do it.
Okay.
Ooh, 4 into 3. We've already marked off the 5. Alright, so we have 1, 2, and 6 left.
Okay. You should narrate this one.
I think there's, a glowing, pulsing nodule at the top of the cockpit. And Indigo, through their neural connection, gives Lucy an impression of Indigo disengaging from the goo enough to be able to reach up to the nodule with a survival knife from inside the cockpit and just sawing it off.
Grim.
Yeah. And at the end of the image, Indigo is it's the only way I can think of to keep them from tracking us.
I think as this nodule comes free, And it is like, I think it is like sawing through a bone, is what it feels like. It's not something you can just pry out or disconnect. It actively feels like sawing something free. And when it gets pulled away, I do think the wound is like oozes
Oh yeah.
more of the eldritch goo, and it just sort
Yeah.
of like trickles down to join the rest of the pool and the pod.
I'm kind of imagining that maybe it's a slightly different color or consistency, and
Oh
like
yeah,
it
I think it's thinner. It flows more like blood, for
yeah,
sure.
and it just like pours down Indy's hands and gets on, some of it gets on Indy's face, and Lucy just gets Indigo just saying, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry,"
Mm-hmm.
before she disengages, to open the cockpit
Mm-hmm.
and just throw the tracking nodule to the ground. So yeah,
Groovy.
fun stuff.
Fun stuff.
To be continued.
Now, I don't claim to be a master storyteller. Quite the opposite, honestly. But if you join us around the hearth, you might hear some fantastic tales. Tales of bravery.
There is an enormous wave of magic. And for just a moment, everything goes still.
Tales of kindness.
And gives the gardener a piece of toast. You feel better. Eat the toast.
Tales of loss.
No battle should ever be worth the cost.
Tales of lives being lived.
You know, Sophia says to Long John Silver, some people say I'm weird.
And tales of creation.
Once upon a time, there was a dog.
Listen to Hope's Hearth, a sci-fantasy solar punk actual play podcast where friends explore identity, community, and the ways people find strength and love in dire situations. Catch it every Wednesday wherever you listen to podcasts, and find us on socials at Hope's Hearth Pod. We hope to see you around the hearth sometime soon.